Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me. Oh, inviting me. Okay. Enjoying the hits in 1921 and 2021. Popular song does not illustrate history. It does not simply reflect history with a capital H taking place elsewhere in oak-panelled offices or muddy trenches. On the contrary, popular song structures a series of mass activities which are part of history. Now, I've been working for several years on the usefulness of popular songs in people's lives, and I wanted to look not at the artists, but at the individuals who make up the people who they influence. Now, popular song, as we know, is much more than music and lyrics, and for me, it's first and foremost a series of mass activities: singing, karaoke, at a concert, in the theatre, in the shower, dancing, at a concert, at a party or in a ballroom, listening to the radio or records or to the supermarket speakers, buying sheet music, records or Spotify subscriptions, dressing up, playing, pretending, communicating. Moreover, each song is a contribution to the ever-changing symbolic landscape of our society. The smash hits are the narratives, the stories we want to tell ourselves, the performances we want to share. Now, I've explored, above all, the participatory theatre aspect of popular song, where the listener's sense of identification, usually with the narrator, but sometimes with the singer, provides satisfaction, encouragement and pleasure of various kinds. And here you can see two of my previous publications, which concern the 1970s. The first article, "What Has Popular Music Ever Done for Us?" examines the major innovations in the production and consumption of popular music during the decade. I then look at the new narratives, characters and positionings in the lyrics and musics, and the new values advocated, and I try to understand them in parallel with the changing lives of the working class young people who made up the bulk of the audience. Smaller families, rising relative prosperity, geographical mobility, relative freeing up of moral restrictions, and so on. The second article, "What Questions Should Historians Ask About the Popular Songs of the 1970s?" argues for the importance of mainstream music in history, and similarly poses the question of how to study the parallelism of the evolution of mainstream song and of mass experience without falling into the traps of nostalgia or journalistic simplification. Today, I'm going to present a work in progress. I'd like to compare some of the most popular songs in the UK from the year 1921 with those from the year 2021. The activities which made these songs exist socially and the narratives that these songs highlight will allow us to approach both the history of everyday life and perhaps to reflect on what might be relatively permanent in the popular song of an urbanised Western country. The choice of 2 years, 100 years apart, has an advantage. It has the advantage of allowing a certain critical distance untainted by nostalgia, a nostalgia which is an important risk when writing, even in academic publications, about the music of one's own youth. Now, the most popular songs of any period represent a corpus very useful for a historian. Analyses otherwise are sometimes based on the best songs or the ones which have not been forgotten, but this is rather dangerous. Sometimes people write about the songs which still speak to us today. From a historian's point of view, this is problematic, although in every decade of UK music, there is an occasional song which still speaks to us, sometimes because of its theatrical, poetic, quaint or nostalgic qualities. The majority of songs from a century ago speak little to us today. And yet it is the majority of songs which must be at the centre of our understanding of what popular song was doing. But is such a comparison possible? The songs of 1921, the songs of 2021. Looking at the British musical of 1921, before the radio and before most people had a gramophone, and then at the huge stadium concerts of 2021, or the ubiquity of hits on Spotify and on radio, it could easily seem that everything has changed. Just looking at some of the venues, the huge gulf between the 2 years is evident. Here we have the Bradford Music Hall, the Alhambra, opened in 1914, where 1,800 people could sit and watch the music hall, including a wide variety of acts, about a third of them singers. The singer will literally come on after the tightrope walker and before the ventriloquist. And here is the audience of 100 years ago. This is actually slightly older. This is from the very beginning of the 20th century. There's a lot we can do with this photograph, but I don't have time now. In contrast, when Ed Sheeran appeared at Wembley in 2021, no tightrope walkers, no ventriloquists, no animal imitators, no clock dancers to interfere with the atmosphere when Ed Sheeran, we will come back to him, plays at Wembley Stadium. So are the two bodies of songs just too different to compare? You can't compare just anything. If I was to propose a conference paper comparing cheeseburgers to epistemology, colleagues might be sceptical about the value of such a comparison. Fortunately, I think that the experience of popular song in 1921 and in 2021 is sufficiently similar to try to compare the two phenomena. And what the nature of the hits tells us about the people of the time. First of all, a word about mistakes. The easiest mistake, and the one that non-specialists make automatically when I tell them I'm working on these songs, is to ascribe general differences in song topics or in song messages, whether between times or between countries, to the zeitgeist or the ideology or what people were like at the time. But in any period, dominant ideas are permanently challenged and somewhat in flux. But more importantly, we must look at the structure of production and consumption, the technical possibilities in the production of song, the legal constraints on its distribution, and the material circumstances in which it is listened to have a very strong influence on song contest. Just to give you one example, when you come on stage after the ventriloquists and before the elephants, romantic songs are not so easy to build up. However, once you move on to review, where the same director controls the whole evening, they can build up a romantic atmosphere. You get far more romantic songs. Just one example there. But first of all, let's look at the audience. In 1921, just like in 2021, the British audience for popular song numbered in the tens of millions. However, these people are not alike. Daily life in 1921 was, of course, much harder than 2021. By the age of 13 in 1921, 40% of women are at work and 60% of men. Whereas in 2021, we have compulsory education up to the age of 18. In 1921, 46% of women over 75 are still in a job, and 27% of men. In 2021, only 10% of the over 65s are still going out to work. In 1921, of the 37 million UK citizens, 1.5 million were metal workers, 1.2 million were underground miners, 1 million were servants. So the audience is very different, and the media also is different. There's huge differences between the two periods in terms of the musical landscape and the training of the average citizen in musical listening, the citizen's listening career, if you like. When the 1921 person goes to the musical, if they don't have a gramophone at home, which is probable, they are comparing the person singing on the stage, and they're thinking, are they as good as my uncle? Are they as good as the street singer? And there's no other comparison. Today, if you only sing as well as my uncle, that's not good enough, because everybody in your audience can listen to thousands of songs every week. In 1921, the central place for popular song was the music hall, and the singer did not have his or her own production space. About a third of the singers are women. In 1921, there was very little segmentation of the audience by age. Yeah? You went to the music hall with your grandmother. And to speak of the musical and social emotional landscape, the most important thing is that the reorganisation of mainstream popular song around youth, energy and the body was a long way off. The main activity of popular song at the time is singing along at the musical. The singer has 1,000 to 3,000 spectators in front of him or her and no microphone. These material conditions influenced the content of the song. There was little musical innovation. The musical singer was on permanent tour. He or she arrived in town on Sunday, and on Monday morning the local orchestra had to learn the music for his or her songs for the first performance on Monday evening. If you come in with avant-garde music, you're not going to be very popular. The content of the songs had to be either consensual or ambiguous. When working without a microphone in a large theatre, the fact that the audience sings the chorus is essential to the atmosphere. If only half sing it, the singer's career might be in danger. There are, quite logically, extremely few radical songs in the musical. The singers felt themselves mostly to be entertainers rather than artists. And access to music was very different in 1921 and 2021. The radio did not exist, except for a few thousand people. The gramophone was only a minority possession. And here we have some of the material culture involved. You have that's an expensive gramophone in the middle, and there you have from 1921 sheet music, and on the other side, of course, today's. Right. Okay. So the media was changing after the gramophone. After the gramophone boom was accelerating in the 1920s. After the war, according to one witness, Columbia signed up the principles of every successful revue in London, and according to Pearsall, by the early 20s there were few fields of music untouched by the gramophone. In 1923 alone, the following journals were launched or relaunched: the Gramophone, Soundwave, the Gramophone Journal and Wireless Times, Gramophone, Wireless and Talking Machine News. From 1925, electrically recorded songs began to be produced in Britain. So we can see the huge difference of the technical possibilities, the social meanings, and so on. But what about the themes of the songs? The stories and fantasies and explorations which were acceptable and desired. The first thing you notice when you look at the top 10 of the 2 years is the massive presence of comedy songs in 1921 and the extreme rarity in 2021. This is really due to the relative absence of the comedy sketch in 1921. If you have a comedy sketch, your manager will say, well, make a song of it. Remember, you don't have to sing very well to sing on a musical stage. That's not technically hard. So, for example, one of the 10 songs in the top 10 from 1921 tells what happened when the narrator wanted to get rid of the corpse of his cat. His cat died, and he tries to... he has a big problem because he doesn't know how to get rid of the cat's... now, this has just died on me. I don't know why. Okay, technical problem here. I have no idea why that happened. Oh, it's lighting up again. Oh. Se connecter. Yes, there you go. I better not do that again. So, yeah, there you get. Yeah, there you have a slide on the technical differences. Before 1925, this is 1911, you can see the way that you increase the volume on the recorder is by going closer. You move closer for louder, and you move further away for quieter. Whereas today, of course, that's a recording studio from 2022. You save a huge amount of effort and technical knowledge goes into. But in both cases, in both in 1921 and 2021, whoever writes a song must often try to imagine who the audience would like to pretend to be for 3 minutes. I've always thought the narrator is extremely important. We often sing along, even if we don't sing along, they're singing for us. When Mercedes Sosa sings Gracias a la Vida, we like it because she's talking for us. And so I've always thought that a songwriter should be thinking about who would people like to pretend to be for 3 minutes. And there are 3 other things that they happening both in 1921 and 2021, apart from the fact that the 3-minute song is king in both years. What do the songs do? They explore our anxieties, they externalize emotions collectively, altogether, and thirdly, which I already mentioned, participatory theory. So I've taken for each year 10 of the most popular songs. All of these songs were liked by millions of people. Still, we need to remind ourselves something of the nature of chart music. If the number one most popular singer in 2021 gets 87 million listeners a month on Spotify, the number one is Ed Sheeran. And if number two, Olivia Rodrigo, gets 37 million, it's important to remember that these are not the same people. Ungenerous visions of pop music as unworthy of interest also tend to lump together the pop music audience into one homogeneous, unrespected mass, but this cannot be the basis of the social historian's approach. So the number one song, which I'll play you at the end, I hope. Number one song in 2021 was Bad Habits by Ed Sheeran, but the number one song in 1921 was Al Jolson's My Mammy, which the Anglophones might know. So let's have a look at the number one in 1921. Jolson's song has roots in the pervasive but unnamed racism of the time. The singer is a white man dressed in blackface. While we understand the racist nature of this exercise today, it is important to consider the theatrical utility of the disguise at the time. In the early 1920s, it was still almost impossible for a white man to express sentimentality or emotion on stage. It went against the idea of virility that people in England and the USA had in the 20s. Dressing up as a black man, since in the racist imagination of the time, black men were like children, it made it possible to write and sing more sentimental and emotional songs. Now, the story itself of the song is racist. The narrator is a white man from the American South who comes home much later and looks forward to seeing his nanny, the black slave who had brought him up when he was a child. Now, the character of the slave nanny is very common in the novels and songs of the time. It's largely invented. It was extremely rare for slaves to be nannies. And it is really the product of a white fantasy of a desexualized and happy, submissive black woman. Now, the other thing which is important about Al Jolson being the most popular song in Britain is this is the beginning of the New Age. In 1911, it was impossible for American music to dominate the English market, because the only market is the live market, and there are so many musicals, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. There are not enough Americans to go around singing. However, what we are seeing is the beginning of the rise of the gramophone. Of course, the gramophone goes back 20 years, but it was so expensive. And now, once the gramophone is around, then the biggest, the most capitalized and most trained artists in the world can dominate the world, and this is the beginning of that. Yes, you will be able to get American domination. So let's have a look at the other one, Ed Sheeran, Bad Habits. Now you have a male narrator who regrets that he keeps coming back under the spell of a woman who is not right for him, and to whom the song is addressed. So it's a male narrator saying, oh yes, my bad habits keep leading me back to you, and I know I shouldn't. Which is a fairly transparent masculine fantasy. There's so many women who want me, I don't know what to do. I'm sure you all have the same problem. Yeah. Okay. And so that's a very interesting piece. Now, the interesting thing, if you look at the whole 10, if you look at the stories of the UK's top-selling 10 hits of 2021, what was interesting was the concentration on the broken or toxic or endangered love relationship. I get a feeling that if we took 1971 in the middle, we'd get something a more positive view of the relationship. In any case, number two. Here we have number two. Number two in 2021 is Olivia Rodrigo, with her single. What's it called? Good for You. It's called Good For You. 30 million, she has 39 million listeners a month. She's American. Ed Sheeran is Britain. In this case, the female narrator explains that the person addressed has left her, has found another girl quickly, but that she herself cannot get over him. Now, this was just 1 and 2 that were chosen, not by accident, because they're the most popular, but if you go through the whole series, in fact, if anybody thought that sexism was finished, I have bad news for you, because the difference in power and agency of the male narrators and the female narrators, even in 2020, is absolutely massive. although much more subtle than the 1960s, under my thumb and stuff like that. So tremendously important there. On the other hand, if this female narrator is, oh, you've left me and you've found somebody else and I can't get over it, I can't get over you. On the other hand, it's very important to note two things. First of all, many popular music researchers have underlined the fact that the lyrics are only one part of the experience. The music and the use of voice may sometimes act against or in another direction from the obvious meaning of the lyrics. The example which is often used is the song "Stand By Your Man," which the lyrics appear to be somewhat submissive, but the powerful use of the voice, it suggests that that's not all there is to it, and there's a lot more work to do on that. Now, so as for Pat Rooney, who's number 2 in 1921, where's he gone? Where's he gone? My next thing here. It'll come back in a minute. It's right at the end. Oh, I've got all mixed up. Yeah, oh yes, of course. It's called "I Love to Go Swimming with Women." Now, this was a real public debate at the time. There had been a tradition of men and women bathing separately, and a long tradition of bathing machines, which are basically ways on the seaside where if you're a woman, you can go into the sea, but you're in a hut, which is on wheels and goes in. So "I Love to Go Swimming with Women" was funny, a little bit rude. I mean, fundamentally, it says, "It's so exciting, I saw some women in a swimming costume." That's about it, yeah. And now this song is not untypical of many generally forgettable music hall songs. Earlier ones like "Should Men and Women Bathe Together" from before the First World War, or Whit Cunliffe's hit "Tight Skirts Have Got to Go," or later ones like George Formby Senior's "When I'm Cleaning Windows," which talks about the slightly rude things he sees because he's a window cleaner. So why do these work? Well, I think it's fairly clear that we're in a society where everything which is related to intimate relationships is really rather taboo. And the reason it's funny is because it's a subject that is scary. It's what we do with pop songs. We sing about things which frighten us, and this is also the case with today's pop songs. That when it's about the reason that breakups are so popular for pop songs is they're really scary things. Yeah, and so I think it's very important to see that pop songs explore and play with emotions we are used to. And it's not so much that they have a message, what they're saying this. And so even though the presence of sexism is very visible, nevertheless, what's important about it is playing with it. This was very much the case in the decade before the 20s, because there are lots and lots and lots of songs about the new roles of women. And I expected when I first began studying the First World War, I thought, oh, well, you'll have a lot of songs saying, it's terrible, women are more liberated. And you'll have a few songs saying, it's wonderful, women are more liberated. It's completely false. There are no songs in favour and no songs against. All of the songs in the First World War say, isn't it worrying? Because everybody thought it was worrying. But, some people were in favour of but thought it was worrying, and some people were against and thought it was worrying. Okay, so, here we have Dua Lipa, who says, I'm in love with you, and I will take you off to the galaxies. But boys, don't believe everything they say. Okay? And on the other hand, here we have Alfred Lester, who is what does he play? What does he sing? Alfred Lester. Oh yes, he sings this wonderful song called "Ours Is a Nice House." Ours is. Our house is very nice, Which is absolutely fascinating. Yeah. Ours is a nice house, ours is. So there are a lot of things going on here. One is he's putting on stage working class dialect. And he's saying, I'm just ordinary, just like you. And indeed, most of the British stars at the time had working class stage names. Fred and Florrie and so on. It was very much about I'm just like you, was very much part. Now, you still get that today singers are supposed to be authentic. Now, it's very difficult to define, but if you sing about how terrible it is to live in the ghetto, even if you're a millionaire, you're supposed to have had a poor childhood. You should, really. So all those things going on. We have just a couple more. I'm almost finished. A couple more here. Yes. So the weekend. This is today's 2021. About don't cry. And there's a wonderful one. It's this one. It's again. It's a male narrator, and it says, I left you, darling, and I was probably wrong to do so, and it's so sad to see you pretending not to cry. Again, boys, I'm sure you have this problem all the time. I mean, certainly in general, men get a much better. Men's fantasies get a much better deal than women's fantasies in pop songs, and so that's what he does. Whereas Fred Barnes is singing about what it's like to be a sheikh who has several wives. And so on and so forth. That's where we are. And here you have the entire lot. Then those are the ones I've just gone through. Also, then the next one in 1921 is a female narrator. Help, mother! A man is trying to kiss me. And then another one, number 3, is the same as number 2. Really, you left me and I can't get over it. That's 2 out of the top 10 songs about you left me and I can't get over it. Yeah, it must be so hard being a woman. And again, 2 in the top 10 in 1921 are these ones about the black nanny. Also, in my opinion, fairly transparently racist. Black as coal. Nobody says this. My mother was white as flour. Nobody ever says that. You only have to do that with black people. And funny joke. So the vast majority of songs are comic in 1921, and the vast majority of songs are love songs in the widest sense of the term about relationships between men and women in 2021. And so just to come to a conclusion, I have a conclusion here somewhere, which is written right at the end, and I'll get to it in a moment when I get through my entire thing here, because I can't tell everybody yet. I can't remember what it was. So the conclusion really, I think, is that there's a lot of things which are the same. That is that the singers sing for us, and we sing along, and they are being the person we would like to pretend to be, even if it's not somebody we want to be. It's somebody we want to pretend to be for 3 minutes, even if it's going to scare us a little bit to be that person for 3 minutes. Or also, sometimes, of course, like all fantasies, if there's any psychiatrists among you, fantasy is free, and so fantasy is often sadistic, masochistic, etc. All sorts of, not necessarily things we're very proud of. Yeah, and of course we sing along to the pop songs without telling our friends, I'd really like to be that man who mistreats his women. That we don't say that, but it's all part of the deal. And so I think this is just a work in progress, and there's a lot more that can be said and done about what has pop music ever done for us. And I'll stop there for today.